Hey.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome back, Misfits, and welcome back to a new episode. Today, we're back with the greatest hits.
Greatest hits. Another
Greatest
greatest
biblical hits. Yeah. So, last week, if you missed it, we talked about Adam and Eve. And if you haven't heard that, please go back to listen to that. And today, we're going to talk about David and Goliath.
Yeah. So, very popular story. I'm sure, I want to say everyone's heard of this story in some way or another. But we find this story in 1 Samuel chapter 17. So, if you don't know that much about the Bible, I feel like you've heard this story, at least. This one is one of, a few that's very,
even if
very
it's,
well known.
Even if it's their names.
Yeah, right. Their names or like the concept.
Something
or
about
like
a giant, something about some stones.
Some kid
a sling,
killed
the
giant guy. Yeah. But today we want to give you just a little more detail of what was going on in this situation. Kind of like why. I will say that this is usually taken as an underdog story, but think also, like what we're going to talk about, you'll see some details where it's not necessarily like this little guy trying to beat up a big guy. Like there's some preparation going on there.
Yeah,
so
like if you knew the context, you would actually be scared of David.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot more behind the scenes.
Definitely.
Like looks aren't everything.
Yes.
Which is kind of David's story from the beginning, but that's also another story for another day.
Exactly.
So at the beginning of the story, David, who we know also became a king, he was also known as King David. He had been anointed king at this time, but he had not taken like that position yet. There was another king in place. So he had, since at home he was a shepherd, and so at this point he's still a shepherd. He's the youngest of all his siblings, and his dad, his father Jesse, sends David to take some food to his brothers, who are currently fighting. They're part of Saul's army, and they're fighting the Philistines.
Yes, and Saul is the current king.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So that's an interesting situation on its own because David knows he's going to be king, but he's kind of in the waiting season, right? So his dad sends him off to take some food. And so you might think like, well, why wasn't David there already? Again, he's the youngest, so he's not of age yet. He's probably the Bible thinks he's probably like 15, 16 or something, and you had to be 19 to fight. So he's still young, but that's why he's still at home and he's helping his dad. So David's dad, Jesse, sends him, hey, take this food to your brothers. And David's like, okay, cool, I'll be right back. And so David makes it to where they are, and then he hears about this Philistine soldier, which we know as Goliath. And he's like yelling, he's scaring all the soldiers. Again, mind you, he had been doing this for about 40 days, so this isn't new to the people who were there. And they were tired of hearing it, they were scared, but of course he wasn't relenting. Like Goliath was like, no, I'm gonna be here big and scary, and I need you to fight me. Like I need one of you to fight me. And that was his whole deal. He wanted one of them to fight him. So David asked, what will a man get for killing this Philistine and ending his defiance of Israel? Who is this pagan Philistine anyway that he is allowed to defy the armies of the living God? So David's a little like annoyed and trying to figure out like, who is this guy? What does someone get if they kill him? Like, how do we end this? And so they tell David, oh, sure, like there's a reward for killing this guy. And so the king offered a huge reward to anyone who would kill Goliath, and he would give that man that killed him one of his daughters for a wife. The man's entire family will then be exempt from paying taxes. Like, it was a huge perk, huge reward, if whoever this person was would actually kill him.
Which makes sense that the reward was so huge because nobody wanted to do
right.
it. So they were really trying to convince him. They're like, you won't have to pay taxes, man, and I'll get you a woman.
Yeah,
you know what I
like
mean?
All these perks.
You get rewards, you get coupons, like, please, just do something about it.
Whataburger for life, like all these things.
Just help us.
Help us, kill this guy. He's taunting us and making our lives miserable. And so the king was like, I'll give you whatever you want, basically. Yeah. So at this point, his oldest brother, who was part of the army, starts talking smack to David, like, why are you asking all these questions? Of course, think about this, like, it's his little brother. He's not even big enough to fight yet, and he's over here, like, asking all these questions, kind of like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, you weren't here. Like, why are you asking all these questions?
Like, you're not even in the army. Like, why do you care?
You're not part of this.
Yeah, like, go babysitter, go watch TV or something.
Let the grown-ups talk kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think you're going to do? Like, you don't know anything. You take care of sheep. Like, get out of here, go do your job. This is our job. And David was like, okay, like, you're a hater. Like, you're mad at me for whatever because you can't fight him or something. I don't know. So he's like, I'm going to go talk to these guys over here. So while David is asking questions, his questions are somehow get to the king, right? Like, they're reported to the king. He finds out that David is asking questions about this guy. And so a little bit of a teaching moment here. King Saul is the king that David eventually replaces as king of Israel. So kind of like what we said, like, he's the current king, but David knows he's going to be king. So it's kind of an interesting situation there. So anyway, Saul sends for David, and David's like, okay, don't worry about it. Like, this giant, I got it. I can kill him. King Saul's like, yeah, but like, he wants to know how you're going to kill him, you know? Like, how are you going to do it? What's the situation? So David's like, listen, when I was watching my dad's sheep, you know, there was a time when a lion and a bear came, and I fought them. Like, I fought them myself with my bare hands and saved the sheep. So, like, I know things. Like, I have tactics to be able to ward off. I have experience. Yeah. I've had practice. I can do this. And plus, the most important thing, God's got my back.
Yep.
Like, God's got my back with the sheep, and I'm seeing this big guy, and he's got my back here too. So, yeah. So what does Saul do?
Yeah, he's like, I got it. So Saul is like, oh, yeah, cool. But before you go, here's my armor. Wear my armor. Because you seem small, right? You're not 19. You're not in the army. You're very brave.
Yeah.
But, like, let me try and protect you, right? So Saul
says... Like, he's about to fight this giant. So he's like, let me give you something. Because you're going in there, like, with shorts and a T-shirt. Like, boy, put something, you know, to protect yourself.
Exactly. And if I'm not mistaken, I've heard this, and this is not... Don't quote me, but it's. I remember hearing that Goliath was something between like 7 and 9 feet or something. So dude was tall.
He was a tall guy.
He was a tall guy. Yeah. So Saul offers David his armor, right? David tries on the armor, and he's like, "No, I can't fight like this. Like, all I need is my slingshot. That's all I need." So David is strategic in his decision because number one, Saul's armor would not fit him, and number two, it was too heavy. So it would actually slow David down so he decided not to wear it.
Yeah. Again. Like, David is young, so can you imagine a grown man giving the armor to, like, a teenager?
Right.
He's gonna swim in it. And, I mean, I don't know about you, but, like, any clothes that maybe is not fitting, like, the arms are too long, and then it's actual metal. Armor.
Yes.
So it's, like, twice. Like, one is too big, but also it's heavy. So, like, how am I going to fight with it? I can't even move my arms.
Yeah. So, like, we really appreciate you trying to protect his life, but, like, it wouldn't have been conducive to him winning anything. Yeah, especially because he was going to fight with a slingshot, right? Because the man already had a plan.
Yeah.
So, David goes out to fight Goliath, and Goliath, of course, starts talking trash to him, right? So, the Bible tells us that they start walking, and they start, like, walking towards each other, then they start running, and David hits him in the forehead with a stone. So once he hits him, right, he uses a slingshot, takes a stone, slaps him in the face with the stone. And then once Goliath hits the floor, he runs up to him and cuts his head off with Goliath's own sword.
Yeah.
Which the guy is huge, right? So you can imagine how large the sword was. And then David is able to use his own sword, like Goliath's own sword, to cut Goliath's head off.
Like, he didn't even need to take his own sword. Like, he was just like, I'm just going to use yours once I kill you.
Yes. Yeah. It's just like a strange picture to see this child or teenager or whatever with a giant sword and just like chopping a 7, 8, 9 foot man's head off.
Like a big old head.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know what it looks like in your head, but it looks weird in my head.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
Yep. So the Bible tells us that from that day, Saul kept David with him, and whatever Saul asked David to do, David did it successfully. So Saul made David a commander over the men of war. So he was like, "You're awesome. I'm giving you a job. I need to keep you around." Which is insane because he didn't know that David was going to replace him as king.
Right.
Crazy.
And he was a teenager also.
Yes.
Like, it's just like so many things that
you're
like,
teenaging shepherd.
Yeah. And he's like, you're going to be commander.
Yes.
But I'm like 16. It's fine.
Yeah. You got it. It's fine.
You got it. You got it.
So, and of course, if you know the story, there's a lot of drama that ensues. But as for David and Goliath, this is where the story ends, right? David just kills Goliath, and then he gets this job
by the confrontation and the situation, and that's how it ends.
Exactly. So the story teaches us a couple of things. It teaches us that God prepares us for the battle before it happens. Whether you realize it or not, he's always trying to prepare you for what's coming next. From a high level, it sounds like a young kid / shepherd that somehow summons the courage to fight this giant.
Right.
But we know that God had called David to be king, and that this waiting period, like quote unquote waiting period, while he was looking after the sheep was actually preparation.
Right, and that's where you kind of get the underdog story, because you think, oh, this little teenage boy went to take lunch to his brothers, and he's like, I can do it, and somehow like summons the courage and kills this giant,
right.
you know. And so in reality, as we kind of laid out, and hopefully if you read through it, you can learn a little bit more too, but he was already preparing. He was already doing things. Like he gave the example, like I fought off bears and lions. Like he was doing things that God was already preparing. So when he did face a situation like this, he wasn't doing it just to show off or like, let me try it. He knew God already was there.
Yeah, he was basically anointed to just handle it. You know what I mean? Because this is the situation. Like him killing Goliath was the door opening for him to work for Saul, to learn from Saul, that eventually led him to do everything else.
Right, because he was going to be in that position.
Exactly.
So that just kind of...
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
a beautiful
led
thing.
him closer.
Yeah, and the story also shows us that, of course, God has our back against any opposition. Because David very clearly knew that. He knew that he was going to be successful. And, you know, we've all been in situations where we're faced with stuff where it's like, I don't know how this is going to play out. But he always has your back. And this story shows us that.
Yes.
Yeah, and it also shows us that when we fight and hit the giant with a stone, we have to make sure he's actually dead and cut his head off. And by that, what I mean is that once we think something is dead, we have to take the measures to make sure the problem or the relationship or whatever the situation is truly resolved and like quote unquote dead. Like we have to make sure that we close doors, and don't leave any doors open, and that the situation that, you know, whatever God told us to do is completely final.
Yeah. And just pray about it. You know, God will show you how to do that and when to do that. The situations that you're dealing with, like God will show you and he'll help you close those doors because he has another door to open.
Yes. We definitely don't want to be leaving any loose ends. And David knew that. And that's why he's like, I got to go up there and make sure he's actually dead. So
yes,
we hope you enjoyed this story. It's another good one.
Yes.
It really is another good
really
one.
Good.
And there's a lot of teaching moments here. So we hope that you can gather information and something that can help you along your walk from David's story, because David is awesome.
Yes. This is one of his many, but yeah.
Yes.
Like his kind of jumping off point to him being king.
This is
really
the pilot episode for David's own TV show that actually takes place in the Bible.
Like this is season 1.
Yes.
It's got a lot better seasons.
Yeah, there's so much going to go on. But if you'd like to jump into that and learn the story of David, he's just an amazing character in the Bible and just a really good example for us to learn from. So we hope that you learned something today, and we will see you next week with another great hit. This is Fran.
This is Yadi.
We are the Midtown Misfits, and we will see you next week.
Bye.